Welcome, NEC Hoops fans, to the latest edition of the NEC on the Run podcast. I'm Ron Ratner. Alongside Ryan Peters once again, we'll bring you all the action from the past week. We've crossed the halfway point of the NEC season. The races are starting to shape up. Ryan, where do we stand with our weekend takeaways?
Well, we had 5 teams turn in a perfect week. They went a perfect 2-0. Let's start with Merrimack. It's funny, we're talking about them every single week, but 8-game winning streak. The thing that I took away from their dismantling of the Brooklyn schools this week was the defense just continues to be on this unprecedented run. It seems like 41 turnovers on 134 possessions. You know, the thing with this defense is you can't get comfortable against them, so offenses will go long stretches without scoring. St. Francis Brooklyn went scoreless on their first 11 possessions, first 6 minutes of the game. During that time, the Warriors built a double-digit lead, a lead they would not relinquish. And against LIU did a better job of scoring early on, but they still only mustered 16 points in their first 24 possessions. And lo and behold, Merrimack took the lead, and they were running for the rest of the game.
Merrimack at 9-1, one of the great stories in the country this year. Still first place, 1 game ahead of Robert Morris in the standings. Let's turn our attention now to Sacred Heart. They lost Cam Parker to a broken ankle, but things have actually been on the upswing since that point.
Yeah, it's been a workmanlike effort out of the Pioneers. You know, they can't be as flashy anymore without Parker. You know, they can't go in transition. They can't just put Parker on a ball screen and have him create offense that way. They have to be more solid. And obviously, you look to Aaron Clark to do that. He's done a really good job of getting into the lane, averaging 12 points a game. The biggest thing that Anthony Attino likes out of Aaron Clark, obviously, is the 16 assists against 3 turnovers in those 4 wins. And then other guys are contributing. Teams are starting to double Anasicki a lot more on the post, but now you're seeing LaRose hit 4 threes against St. Francis Brooklyn. Kareem Ozier has been very efficient as a volume scorer. He's getting his 16, 18 a game, but he's still making 55% of his shots. And then Tyler Thomas coming off the bench. Jarrell Spellman's been really good. He's kind of returned to a defensive player of the year type of guy. He had 11 blocks in the 4 wins. So Sacred Heart's getting it done. Not just replacing, you know, one guy's not going to replace Parker's production. A number of guys are just getting it done, and it's led to Sacred Heart looking really good in this 4-game winning streak, as now they host the PA schools going into this weekend at the Pitt Center.
You're right, Ryan. Contributions up and down the lineup for Sacred Heart. Big games indeed this week against St. Francis U and RMU. Let's turn our attention to the Red Flash, coming off a big week at home with wins over Bryant and Central Connecticut. What's the story there?
So Rob Krimmel, you know, so they were coming off the 3-game losing streak, which this is a testament to Rob Krimmel and the consistency and the quality he's brought to that program. That was the first 3-game losing streak in league play that the Red Flash have had since the 2015-2016 season. To literally go 4 years between 3-game losing streaks is quite remarkable. And quite honestly, it didn't look that great for them. They're down 20 at the half against Central Connecticut, a Blue Devils team that could not miss from behind the arc. But they got contributions from the role guys in that historic 21-point comeback. I think that's an NEC record. Ramir DIXON-CONOVER was terrific in that second half, a great 2-way player. We're going to talk about him a lot more later on. Mark Flagg, he had 19 and 9 in that win. You know, Blackman and Braxton are obviously 2 of the top 5 players in the league. So the Red Flash, you know, they have that historic comeback in Central Connecticut, and then they pick up that momentum, go right in on that Saturday against Bryant, and they win kind of going away. A terrific effort on both ends of the floor. So they're in good shape now. It's 7-4 in the league. They're within striking distance of still getting that regular season, that title that they're looking for.
Ryan, indeed, that was the biggest comeback in NEC history, the win over Central. It was also the 42nd biggest comeback in NCAA history, and after 3 straight losses, may have been a turning point for their season. Let's stay in Western PA, Ryan. Talk about Robert Morris, 8-2 in the league, winners of 3 straight. It seems like consistent play throughout the season from their top players. What are you seeing from the Colonials?
So in addition to, you know, the greatness that A.J. Brahma's bringing, you know, we talked about him in the Star Watch a few weeks ago, and it's probably our best call at this point because he's emerged as a first-team guy potentially, and maybe a guy who could kind of get his name brought about in the Player of the Year conversation. But that Colonials defense over the weekend against Central Connecticut and Bryant was stout as always. They gave up 0.87 points per possession, and they held their opponents to less than 36% from the field. You know, nothing comes easy with this Colonial defense. Andy Toole's a master at getting teams to be very uncomfortable in the half-court set and take shots that they don't necessarily want to take most of the time from the mid-range game. So they're progressing great right now. They're trending to be the #1 seed in the NEC tournament. There's still a lot of work to be done. They go to Sacred Heart this weekend. They still have St. Francis University a couple times, but they're in great shape at 8-2.
The 4 teams we spoke about all swept their games last week, but the 5th, Fairleigh Dickinson, great bounce back week for them. Wins over Wagner and the Mount, now 4-6 in the NEC standings, trending upward. Ryan, your take on the Knights' week?
I mean, the Knights they're just too talented from the top. You know, their top 4 guys with Jenkins, Bishop, Williams, and Malone Key. They're too talented to be held down in the standings. So in addition to the top 4 guys, you're getting contributions out of Brandon Powell. He's been in 9 straight games scoring in double figures. And Devin Dunn, the reigning NEC Rookie of the Week, he had 20 points on 8 of 11 shooting in that dismantling against the Mount. Those 2 guys have kind of stabilized the perimeter game for the Knights. That's what they were missing when Darnell Edge graduated, but both guys now in league play are making over 40% of their takes from behind the arc, and that just adds another dimension to this team. Now you add Jenkins' playmaking, you add Bishop and Williams, and obviously their versatility down low. This is a team, they have a very good chance, I think, to get back to even when the regular season ends, or even maybe get a 10-8 record, because like I said, there's just too much talent in this team, and now Greg Herenda has his 6 guys he could run with.
Ryan, let's take a look at the NEC standings. Merrimack, of course, on top. They are not eligible for the postseason tournament. So as you said, Robert Morris right now, the de facto #1 seed. Looking down at those teams in the mix, do you see anybody ready to make a run that we haven't spoken about?
Well, St. Francis Brooklyn, they're really tough. They lost a close one to Sacred Heart this weekend. With Dennis Chelin and the guards that they have, I would not count them out to make a run. We mentioned FDU already. LIU is one of the most talented teams in the league, obviously. So and Mount St. Mary's has one of the best defenses in the league. So, you look at the projected 5 through 8 seeds in the NEC tournament. If the season ended now, I mean, none of those teams are teams that the top seeds want to play. So there's plenty of time for them to move up, and I think a couple of them will make their move at some point.
This week's Twitter Timeout features Merrimack's men's basketball account. As you can see, 76 wins for the trio of seniors on the Warriors. Jaleel Lord, Idris Joyner, and Javaris Hayes, now tied for the winningest class in school history. Ryan, this has been quite a trio for Merrimack this year.
Yeah, they all hail from St. Anthony High School, coached under Bob Hurley. I think a lot of the pundits, we obviously underrated Merrimack going in. You look at their history, 3 straight NCAA Division II tournament appearances, an NE10 championship, seniors that have played together literally since high school, and then a coach, obviously a terrific coach in Joe Gallo, who learned under the great Bert Hamill, also learned under Andy Toole when Robert Morris was really good in the middle of the last decade. So you kind of look back, all the ingredients were really there for a team that could compete, and actually compete for the NEC title. So looking back, it's kind of, in retrospect, it's easy to look back and say, oh, we underrated Merrimack, but you look at everything that they have, the seniors, the leadership, just the playmaking ability, the defense, the coach, and it's been a remarkable run for this team. They have a lot to be proud about.
The chemistry's been off the charts for Merrimack this season, and it's something I asked Jaleel Lord about a couple of weeks ago, and here's what he had to say about it.
It's a form of unity, because at one point, I was the younger kid on the team, and we had an older team, and I was one of the youngest, me and Javaris Hayes, and then Idris Joyner came. And our goal was to just, start a legacy and, set the proper examples for the younger guys coming in and let them know that, success is not easy. We had to work all 4 years for any type of success. We were always, the underdogs. So just this year's, the main goal was to have everybody on the same page, whether it doesn't matter what our talents are. It's about being together at any moment of the time, whether it's a loose ball, picking each other up on a foul or whatever. We just always have to be on the same page regardless, no matter who has a hot night or whatever. That's the most important thing to our team.
Now it's time for us to highlight our under-the-radar player of the week, and we go to St. Francis University.
The junior, Ratner DIXON-CONOVER, he was everywhere in the Red Flash's historic comeback, as we talked about, posting 13 points, 3 steals, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists in the second half, while hitting all 3 of his triples. He hadn't previously made a 3-pointer during the season, but that last 3-pointer he banked in, he kind of gave that Michael Jordan shrug, like as if to say, I just can't miss tonight, guys. But, in all seriousness, he's not only stabilized the point for Rob Krimmel offensively, especially given all the injuries that they've had to Gaskins and Meredith and Lasky, but he provides great value. He always has on the defensive end. He's just so disruptive, and he actually has the second best steal rate in league play behind the great Javaris Hayes at 8.1%. DIXON-CONOVER is actually getting a turnover, a steal on 4.5% of the opponent's possessions, which is an incredible number in its own right. And then you go along with his ability to drive into the lane, create in transition. He's been an under-the-radar guy for Rob Krimmel, playing really well of late.
And with Randall Gaskins out with an injury the last couple of games, he's been an invaluable piece for Rob Krimmel in the Flash. Ryan, you've been on point with your Star Watch this year. Who's your pick this week?
I know the Mount had a tough week on the road, but it wasn't a fault of the Mountaineers' dynamic point guard, Damian Chung-Kui, who's developed into, quite frankly, the program's best player, just 1 year removed from being a preferred walk-on. You look at him, he's 16th in the league in scoring, 8th in assists. He hits his free throws. He makes his shots from behind the arc. He's 4th in turnover ratio at 2.0. Just watching him over the past week, he had a quiet first half against Sacred Heart. They did a really good job kind of preventing him from getting into the lane, but then Chung-Kui was just unstoppable in that second half. He scored 16 points on 10 shots. The thing I like about Chung-Kui, despite being 5'8", he's really adept at taking the physical contact in the lane and basically not allowing the defender to have enough space to block his shot. And he has that craftiness, that creativeness to get his shot on the rim and be quite efficient doing it. And then you throw in a burgeoning mid-range game with him, and obviously he hits his threes. He's a complete player who could score anywhere on the floor.
Damian Chung-Kui, our Star Watch performer this week. It's our Play of the Week segment now. Ryan, we've had so many super dunks this year. We may have to do a whole segment on this at some point. But last week, FDU's Elijah Williams, we couldn't even pick one. We had to go with two this week. Take us through these.
I mean, I love Elijah Williams, so athletic, such a wide body, but he does things on the floor that you're not supposed to do at that size. I mean, against Wagner, he goes coast to coast, and then he has the Euro step at the foul line, and then just flushes it with authority. Just an impressive athletic play out of Williams in their win at Wagner. And then the 2 days later against the Mount, throwing it down in transition. I love this play because he calls for the lob at half court. He goes into an all-out sprint, and then Jaleel Jenkins, you need the perfect delivery from him, and he provided that. And obviously another kind of an earth-shattering jam out of Williams. He's such a dynamic player around the rim.
Ryan, our milestone watch takes us to Moon Township. Josh Williams, one of the top three-point shooters in the league. What did he do last week?
I mean, we talked about Adam Grant, a great three-point shooter in his own right last week, and now we go to another one, Josh Williams. He's now got 300 career three-pointers. Just a remarkable achievement. And I love Williams' game. He's such a streaky shooter, but I think in Robert Morris's first 4 games of the year in league play, he was shooting over 70%, which obviously wasn't sustainable, but it kind of shows you how potent this guy can be. In Robert Morris's win against Bryant, Williams hit 5 of 6 from downtown and was pivotal in that win. And the thing I like about Williams is it seems like he's always playing at a different pace. He's just he's going at a different speed. If he's open, he catches the ball by the three-point line. The defender's obviously going to race and try to contest, and he just kind of has that nice little pump fake, watches the defender fly by him, and then he puts his shot up. It seems like he never gets bothered by the speed of the game. And his brother's like that too. John reminds me of that as well. So Josh Williams, just a terrific player. The Williams brothers have been really critical in getting Robert Morris back to near the top of the NEC standings.
Always relaxed and under control, Josh Williams. Played 4 years. First 2 were at Akron. Last 2 at Robert Morris, where he has 178 of his 305 triples. Let's take a look at our games to watch. Pair of TV games upcoming this week. First, this Thursday night, Merrimack at Fairleigh Dickinson, 7 p.m. on ESPN3. These two teams played in a pretty good one a couple weeks ago.
It was an epic double overtime thriller on Hamill Court. In that prior matchup, the game was tied 15 times, and there were 7 lead changes throughout. I'm really interested to see how the Merrimack zone does against Jaleel Jenkins. In that first game, Jenkins played the entire game, did not take a break, but only was able to get 9 points on that 2-3 zone. I'm very curious to see, now that Fairleigh Dickinson has that three-point threat that I mentioned in Powell and Dunn, I'm very curious to see how Jenkins is going to kind of carve up that zone and get into the lane.
If the Knights can win this one against a 9-1 Merrimack team, this could be the shot in the arm they need to make their run.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not going to say that they're going to win, but I think Fairleigh Dickinson has a very good chance to pull off the upset here.
Moving on to Saturday in the second half of an ESPN Plus doubleheader, it's Central Connecticut at Bryant, 4 p.m.
Yeah, just a team loaded with promising freshmen. On the Blue Devils side, I'm really enjoying the maturation of Jameer Reed. At 6'4", he's just a mismatch, a versatile Philly tough guy who, against Robert Morris, scored 19 points on 12 shots. That's not easy to do against an Andy Toole coach team. He's really versatile, can shoot the three, get into the lane. He could get an assist as well. But then Bryant obviously has their share of really good freshmen. They have the three-headed monster with Michael Green, Benson Lynn, and Charles Pride. And of the three, I really like Pride, just his versatility. The fact that he's a jack of all trades forward, he could shoot it, he could run, he could pass, he could dribble, he could defend, he could do it all, and you don't see that out of a lot of rookies.
I'm a fan of all the guys you mentioned, but I love watching Jameer Reed. I think Donyell Marshall has someone special as a foundational piece for them.
Yeah, he may be the best freshman on that team, and that's saying a lot when you talk about Greg Outlaw's athleticism. Miles Baker, Trey Tennyson had a really good shooting performance against St. Francis University last week. Xavier Wilson down low. They have a lot of talented freshmen, but Jameer Reed, he looks like a future star.
As you take a look at the schedule of games on NEC Front Row and on the NEC On the Run series of mobile and streaming apps, one thing that just jumps out at you is Sacred Heart's games against St. Francis U and then Robert Morris, 3 NEC contenders. This could go a long way in determining seeding come March.
Yeah, this is huge for Anthony Latino. You're hosting both games, so you gotta hold serve. You gotta win at home if you want to be a contender in this league, and we'll see what Sacred Heart can do.
That's all for this week's edition of NEC on the Run. Ryan Peters, once again, thanks for stopping by the NEC Front Row studio. We will be back next week to bring you the latest and the greatest in NEC men's hoops.